Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is,
Wolf.
and we are back from a bit of a hiatus. And what are we gonna talk about after we're back from a break? I'll tell you what. We're going to talk about backlogs because everybody has a backlog, and I have a backlog. Wolf has a backlog. The listener has a backlog. Everyone has a backlog.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to talk about backlogged file work and programming. Enjoy. We're here to tell you why
Yeah,
backlog file work is so amazing and so great, and you should definitely enjoy it.
not that backlog, buddy.
Listen,
Not
there
that
is
bad.
one person out there who's like, yes, finally. Sorry, one person, but no, this is not the
Yeah,
episode for
and
you.
you realize, and you, okay,
But we did
so you know
acknowledge you, so
something?
you owe us a like at least.
I think, considering the target audience for this podcast, if I was about to say that I'm sorry if anyone is going to feel attacked by this topic, but I think you just attacked a very specific person, and I hope he's not taking it too seriously.
Listen, that one person out there is like, they got really happy for like 5 seconds, and then we dashed their dreams and hopes.
You dashed their dreams. I didn't have any part in
We're all
it.
in this
That's on you.
together.
I guess. I'm being
Listen,
held captive,
we,
but okay.
we did more than any other podcast out there has ever done before. We acknowledge that that person who likes backlog file work exists. We acknowledge them. No other
Yeah.
podcast. Name me a podcast out there that's actually about backlog file work. If that exists, I will eat a shoe.
Okay.
Not really going to
You
eat a
know
shoe.
something? That's going to be an interesting thing to Google after we're done. But anyway, we're not talking about file backlogging. We're talking about entertainment backlogging.
Mhm.
Stuff that we are meaning to get to, but we just don't. It can be anything. It can be shows. It can be movies. It can be video games, books,
Well,
comic books, whatever.
well, let's do it like this, right? Let's kind of start off with what are some of the oldest things in our backlogs? Some of the stuff that's been out for a long time that we've just, we've wanted to get to it, or it's stuff that released many, like before our time, and it's something like, hey, I've always wanted to watch that. It seems like it'd be interesting, and we've just not.
Well, I guess I'll get to mine. Star Wars.
A good one, a good one, a good one.
Because here's the thing, I know about everything that happens in
Hmm.
Star Wars, the movies anyway, maybe a thing or two from the shows, but like I know of everything that has to do with Star Wars. I know what happens in each movie. I know what's generally like, what's generally disliked, but I've never taken the time to actually sit down and watch any of them. And it's not that I have anything against that necessarily. It's just I couldn't bring myself to actually sit down and watch them. It's honestly kind of frustrating.
That's fair. It. I've not like I'm like you. I know everything about those movies, especially the old trilogy, the original trilogy. I know everything about them. I've seen enough of it to like oh I know all the story beats. There's nothing in this that will
And I
surprise me or
and
anything.
before anyone said, I know that Han shot first. I know that.
But I guess it's just I'm not a huge sci-fi fan or like that type of genre fan. So it's just never something that I've really just went in and sat down and fully watched. But I've seen enough of all of it that I can talk about it without having to see it because there's no way
Yeah.
not to.
hmm Like, let's say you are not going to see me in some of those first time watching Star Wars, and I'll be shocked that Vader is Luke's dad. I know it's coming.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard to go back and watch stuff that's so popular, that's like in the pop culture so much and so
Yeah.
ubiquitously, right?
Honestly, maybe not the same because we know this, but I think like people like kind of missed skip like let's say Harry Potter when it was new. Like I think even if they haven't read the books or seen the movies, they know, like a lot of people who never touched Harry Potter know what's happening.
Yeah.
They know the story. So it's kind of hard to like kind of ignore everything about it and just try to walk in blind because you know what's happening. And in
I
a sense, I think that's also one of the things that can cause a backlog, and I know it for myself. When you hear so much about something, like a Star Wars, Harry Potter, anything, when you hear so much about how much people love it and how much you kind of need to experience it, it's kind of starting to feel like homework to some degree, and it just kind of automatically shuts something off in your brain about watching it.
Yeah.
At least I feel.
Well, I think again, it's one of those things of you've seen it everywhere. Like I don't know if this is a modern internet problem, right? Like the internet made this worse or not, but animated GIFs or GIFs for you weird people out there, it is something that there's so many of them, and for like really popular movies like Star Wars or even Harry Potter, right? You can just about look up a bunch of those and generally get the gist of the movies to some degree. Like
Yeah,
you
it's
think
like
I'm joking, but there's so many of those, gifts out there that it's just you again, you kind of get the movie in that form. It's don't get me wrong, it's not like a better format. It's not. It's definitely a worse format, obviously, to experience the movie in. But you've seen so many of them, and it's like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I get that. You may not understand it fully, but you've essentially seen it. And it kind of, I don't know if this is just a me thing, but once I've seen so many gifs of something and I've heard so many people talk about it, like you said, it just kind of, yeah, this is good. It sounds great. I would definitely enjoy it. But at the same time, I've
like
seen, heard so much of it. I don't
like
know.
actually there's something that in a Discord server I'm in, someone was asking for film recommendation, and one of my friends there recommended Tick Tick Boom, which is a Netflix movie about the life of Jonathan Larson, the guy who wrote Rent.
Mhm.
and that friend, that friend is very much correct. You should see Tick Tick Boom, definitely. But she mentioned it so
It's on
much
my
in that
backlog.
server that, yeah, ironically, but the thing is that that friend mentioned it so much that the person who asked for the recommendation said, I heard you talk so much about this movie that it kind of puts me off of it. And it's sadly something that does happen when you just hear something so many times, it does take you out of it.
Which is sad because, right, you want to, like, hey, watch this. It's so great. You want to talk about the things you love and enjoyed and why you love and enjoy them. But generally, if you talk about them too much, people will, not everyone, but some people will generally, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get to it. And then it just turns into, eh, you talk about it all the time. I've heard enough about it. I think I get it at this point. No, but you don't. You need to watch it. Eh. And it's like, damn it. How do you talk about thing that you love without, putting other people off of thing that you
Yeah, because I always say that, I try whenever I give someone a recommendation for something, I try my best to kind of, say
hold
that
back? Yeah.
I really loved it. It really spoke to me, but I don't want to speak of it because one, I can accidentally spoil something from them, but that also depends on the person I'm talking to because I like my best friend, like she would always hear just, just opinions, and I can't go any further. Every little detail about this is a spoiler. So I'm not even trying. But at the same time, take my girlfriend, for example, I can spoil her the whole thing. She doesn't care.
Hmm.
So it really depends on the person, too. Like, in terms of what exactly you can recommend and how to recommend it.
What I like, this is my general recommendation for things like, oh, I really enjoyed this, and here's a person who like, I'm interested in this thing. Does anyone have any recommendations for it or anything? I generally just kind of say
Me,
it's really good. I liked it, and that's it.
Which
And then people get mad
honestly,
about that and they're like, I need a bit more than that. I'm like, all right, here's the general gist of it. I'm not saying any more. Some people are like, all right, or some people
again,
still not
because
helpful. I'm
yeah,
like, damn
because
it.
it's also kind of recommend depends on what exactly you're recommending to who,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right? Like, because let's say I can really enjoy actually something that we had not too long ago. Like I really love the Klonoa games. I recommended them to you so we could do a podcast about them, and then you tell me that you're not into platformers much. So obviously, my recommendation won't necessarily apply to you because this is not the type of game you enjoy.
But to be fair, I didn't
But
hate those games though.
of course, I'm not saying that
Like
you absolutely hated them, but
I
that's
feel
something to
like,
consider. If you know the person, you know their time, you know
oh,
their
absolutely.
taste. That could be something because I would tell you right now, like I love Encanto and Tick Tick Boom, and just ironically enough, both films that have Lin Manuel Miranda connected to them. And but at the same time, I won't recommend them to a good friend of mine who loves movies, but he can't get into musicals. So I can't recommend them to musicals, you know?
No, that's fair. Absolutely.
So what else so here's something I want to ask you. So
Mm-hmm.
you have a backlog. How do you manage to get something out of it?
So partially, there have been
Mhm.
an occasion or two where I get something out of it by saying, "Hey, we should cover this on this show."
And you stole my way because really a lot of the time that's how I can manage to get something out of my backlog. To like,
It's true.
hey, hey, Wolf, wanna cover something on the Outcast or Berkcast, and you're like, yeah, dude, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so that's how I get stuff out, but because I know I have to talk about this on a podcast.
Yeah, that's what we're telling you, ladies and gentlemen. Here's our recommendation for you, and it's full 100% proof, guaranteed to get it out of your backlog. Start
Start
a
a freaking podcast.
podcast.
Start a podcast. No general theme. Just talk about whatever the hell you want. Don't even do like we started as full on How to Train Your Dragon and then spawn off into this thing. No, no, no. Just start with this and just do whatever the hell you want. You know
It's
what?
fun.
This is a good. You know something? Let's open another spin-off. Let's call it the
Oh no,
Backcast, and just
the
choose a thing that we
backcast.
both want to say. But then again, it will just be a regular outcast. So you know what? Fuck it. Let's just keep it as such, and that's
Um,
it.
Other than cheating, essentially,
Mhm.
sometimes I'll get into an itch, like something that was on my backlog that I actually recently watched earlier this year,
Mhm. Yeah.
was Trigun. It was an anime. It's a very old anime. It's been on my backlog for a long time. Been meaning to
Yeah.
get to it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And did recently this year, and I kind of just sat down and said, "Hey, let's start clearing out the backlog," and just kind of forced myself essentially to just watch some stuff, and Trigun was
Mhm.
one of them. And I realized, wow, this is actually really short, much shorter than what I had anticipated it being, and I got it done and off my backlog very quickly.
Mhm.
Something else that was on my backlog that have been meaning to watch. This one I did not finish. I kind of just, as I went through it, realized
Yeah.
more and more that, yeah, this just isn't for me, was Game of Thrones. I got to, for those interested, about season 3 and said, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. It's just not hitting me. It's not connecting with me. There's just too much here that I'm just kind of, it's fine, but it's
You
not
know.
it's not connecting with me, right? And that was something else that, like, hey, it's off my backlog now. I'm probably never going to finish it. I might go back, so I guess technically you can say it's on the backlog, I
Uh,
suppose, in the I
but then again,
started
if you
this, but I'm
cannot
kind
bend
of
it,
about it category.
yeah, because let's say there are a show like I started watching Smallville. I don't think I need to tell you which company
You
this is
started
from, but
watching what again? Say again? I missed that.
Miss Marvel.
Oh, Miss Marvel. Okay.
I saw the first two episodes of it. Really liked it because I also like from what I read, I like Miss Marvel in the comics too.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I can never sit that I can't find the time to sit down and watch the rest of the series, even though I really want to.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there any show that I started watching, really enjoying, and it's just kind of been put off? I'm
Because
trying to
I have a
think.
lot of those. Like actually, again, my best friend recommended me Neo Genesis Evangelion, and like I watched half of it. I really enjoyed what I was seeing, and then I kind of just put it off for a few months until just a few months ago I picked it up again and finished it. But it was like, what took me so long? I can't answer, but it's just, I guess it's just that new things are just coming out all the time.
Yes.
And I guess because, there are stuff that are not necessarily in the backlog, but you kind of want to keep going. Like, let's say, those shows like The Owl House, Phibia, that release new episodes.
Yeah, the,
Amphibia is done
yeah,
now. And
yeah. The Owl House is, I believe, October 15th. So very
Yeah,
soon that'll be
At the time
finished.
at the time of this recording, Owl House is between seasons 2 and 3. So, but at the same time, when you know that you have these episodes to look forward to, you are not necessarily in the mood of I need to see something else.
Mm.
So, and
I guess it's
again,
that idea that
and
like, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and sometimes it's also a thing with movies that something comes out and you want to see it, but there's just something else that kind of takes priority. Like actually, one of my favorite movies, this year, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I sadly skipped on it in theaters because it came out at around the same time as Sonic 2 did, and not to say anything about the quality of each movie, but as a Sonic fan, one took priority and the other one
Mm,
was barely advertised, and I didn't hear about it until it was too late.
mm.
So sometimes it's just also the circumstances of everything that put something in a backlog,
I,
even
I
though you
think
didn't meet it.
I think for older stuff, very older stuff though, I would
Mhm.
argue that a part of it is we as people, as human beings, enjoy being able to talk about things with other people, especially things that interested us or that we found, unique or interesting or enjoyable or, good in XYZ way, right? And
Yeah.
like looking at Neon Genesis, looking at Neon Genesis Evangelion. What a mouthful. It's not, but I'm good with English, I promise. I've not watched that either. I have never touched it. It's been on my backlog for years, and I keep hearing people, you need to watch this. It is one of the best anime out there. There's a reason why it's called a classic and considered a classic by anime. Yes, I'm exposing myself. I'm not the weeb you thought I was. I've not watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, but
But
I
you
haven't.
can skip stuff.
Well, no, I
I
mean,
know, like,
you can, but I think there's an expectation, right, from people of,
yeah,
if
I
you
get
say,
you.
hey, I'm a weeb, then, people expect you to have watched like those classic shows, like, hey, I'm experienced in blah, 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 or I consider myself a fan of blah, 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 right? People, there's an expectation behind those words of, oh, then you've watched these quote unquote classics within that genre or within that area,
Yeah,
right?
I get you.
And
Yeah.
if you say no, they're like, ugh, you're not what you said you were.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also kind of hate this categorizing because,
Oh
but
yeah,
because just because you didn't watch the one thing, it doesn't mean that you're any less a fan of a genre or
no,
a
no,
movie director or a creator. It's like it's just you didn't get to this specific one,
yeah, no, that's fair.
and like because I remember that I say I'm a film major, right?
Hmm.
But before I started college, I haven't watched The Godfather. No, for
You've
two
not
reasons.
watched.
One, two reasons for that. One, I watched Shark Tale as a kid, and that's basically the same movie. But on a serious note,
The pitchforks and torches were coming out, man, the second that came out.
okay,
They're gonna hunt
it's
you down.
you know that everyone made that joke, right? Everyone calls Shark Tale Finding Nemo meets The Godfather.
I
That's
mean,
the joke.
yes, but no one says those movies are basically the same. No one. They're gonna hunt you down.
Uh, uh, Again, for the record, this is a joke.
Yes, yes.
But it's just one of those that as a kid, it's not really a movie that my parents would show me as when I was a kid, and when I was a teenager, I was just watching other things. And so yes, I watched Big Lebowski before I watched The Godfather. Shoot me, what do you want? It's just how life rolls.
I mean, Big Lebowski is obviously better.
Yeah, definitely. Also, yeah, saying this to someone who Big Lebowski is one of his favorite movies of all. So yeah, it's I'm obviously pretty biased if you couldn't tell.
That's fair.
For the record, The Godfather is a good movie. I'm not saying it's not, but yeah, it was on my backlog for the longest time. And now too, yeah.
I just thought of it. Something that I started watching and I have been meaning to get back into because it's one of those rare sci-fi shows that I really enjoyed, and I just haven't for whatever reason. I don't know if you've heard of it, but the Expanse. I started watching that. Huh?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure what it's about.
It's a sci-fi show from Amazon, I believe. It's on Amazon, and it's like it's one of those sci-fi shows that features, hey, space travel, and this one isn't like hyperspace. You take the time to travel, and it's got that colony on Mars and the moon or whatever, right? And things happen in it. It's been a while. I started watching
things happen in it.
I started watching The Expanse.
So, Wolf, how would you describe a show? Well, things happen in it.
Listen, all I remember from that show is like, fuck. I watched it with a friend, and one of the jokes between us was like, wannabe Han Solo, and like edgy Han. That was it. It was edgy Han Solo. That's the only joke I remember from that show, because it's like, this guy's Han Solo, except he's the edgy version because he's got like a weird haircut and he wears slightly, edgier looking clothes. Anyone who watches the show has to agree with me, all right? If you've seen the show, they're going to get really mad at me. I don't care. It's edgy Han Solo. I will never not call him edgy Han Solo. But anyways, I started watching that, believe it or not, right before the second season came out. With a friend. He got me into it because he really loved the first season. Watched the second season, really enjoyed it. I felt like the second season went from, hey, this is relatively normal sci-fi, to holy shit, we're dealing with aliens now all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I feel like it jumped the shark, but like, I'm here for this, it's great. And then I just never got back into it, waiting on season 3, and I believe it's up to season 4, season 5 now, somewhere in there. And I've just never sat back down to watch it. Let me look at it. Wow. Yeah, it started in 2015. What season are they on right now? I was wrong. They're on season 6. So they're even further ahead.
Well, more jocks have been jumped, I suppose.
But yeah, that's one of those few shows that are like, I started watching this and I really enjoyed it, and I've just not sit back down to get back into it and rewatch it again. And at this point, I think part of it might be, at this point, it's been so long, because again, I started watching it when it first came out. So that was over 5 years ago.
It reminds me that I started watching The Big Bang Theory around the time.
Oh, you poor soul, why?
Okay, for the record, the first few seasons, I actually thought it was a bit funny, and also keep in mind, I was a dumb teenager when it first came out, okay?
That's true. You're young. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm young. Hate me. Anyway, so I liked the Big Bang Theory when it started, but then like at around season 9, I just dropped the show because I was just getting sick of it. And I asked people who actually finished it what happens in the end, and it's like, oh, okay, Sheldon gets his Nobel Prize. Go him, I guess.
Yeah, but now you can go watch Young Sheldon.
Yeah, man. Let's say this is something that I never watched. I have no intentions.
I don't blame you. I've not heard good things. I've seen
Yeah,
like an
and
episode or two, I'll admit, and I've seen a few episodes of The Big Bang Theory as well. But it's just, I think there's a problem with me in Western shows where
mhm.
like a lot of Western shows, I feel very samey. Like they tend to hit a lot of the same
Yeah.
beats or similar plot points around the same times. And
Not,
this is one of
I
the things
think
that
just
kind of
in
put me off Game of
general.
Thrones too, personally.
Yeah. Actually, Game of Thrones was something that was on my backlog, but then again, you're just gonna see the thing that everybody dies in this show. So it's like, okay, I don't want to watch a show where everyone is dying in every episode. Thank you. No,
I mean, everyone
just
says so many people die in Game of Thrones, but it's never someone truly important. It's one of these side characters that gets introduced. Yeah, they might have a bit of character to them. Yeah, you might end up liking them a bit, and then they die, and it's like, oh, but it's no one that's truly important dying. Beyond spoilers, Ned Stark dying at the very beginning. Like he's,
yeah.
I would argue, like one of the more important characters that die, but it's still not a lot of quote unquote important people die in the books or in the show.
I have experience with absolutely neither of those, so I'll take your word for it.
I've read the books at least,
Mhm.
but
All I know about the book is that a friend of mine read it and she really hated it, and that's all she wrote.
interesting. Fair enough though.
Hmm.
Not everything's for everyone. Speaking of Game of Thrones, actually something that's recently come out, if we want to get into like, hey, is there
Also, I heard about the House of Dragons thing.
yes,
Yeah,
that is on my backlog. I've heard good things about it. Hopefully it doesn't turn out
I
the
heard
same
that.
as the first Game of Thrones show.
That's the thing. That's because I heard the name and it's like, oh, okay, another show about dragons. Why not? I need one of those.
Not quite what you think it is.
Glells, that's something else, but that's not the time. But the thing, and then I heard it's a Game of Thrones thing, and I'm like, oh, okay. And actually, it kind of took me out. It took my will to watch it a bit. Knowing it's connected, and because
Right.
again, I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but the thing is, and so yeah, I just don't care. And if I don't care, then I'll probably just move on to something else.
That's fair. It's on my backlog. Again, I do enjoy Game of Thrones. Even if I couldn't get
Mhm.
into the first show personally, I still enjoy the books, and I've heard good things about this one, so it might, pique my interest more, and maybe it can do for me what the first show was not able to do. And also, speaking of like that Western fantasy stuff, the new Lord of the Rings show from Amazon is also on my backlog. I've heard good things about that as well, and I'm interested to watch it too.
That's actually a point to say. I was just on vacation in Singapore, and every place had advertisement for that show. So, and I can actually say I've seen the first Lord of the Rings, and I was blown out of my mind. So I don't really care.
I
But
loved it.
yeah, but like no, but like for people who are fans, I hope you enjoyed the show, right? I'm just
Mhm,
saying, from
mhm.
my point of view, this is not something that I'm seeking.
Well, that's fair because it's very similar to me with sci-fi. There's a lot of sci-fi where I've tried, I just can't get into it. I know people
Mhm.
continue to recommend me to watch, I believe it is called Firefly. It's on my
Yeah.
list. It's again, that's a show that's on my backlog, but it's one that I've taken so long to get to because I worry that I'll watch it and be like, yeah, it's sci-fi, it's all
Yeah.
right, but it's not for
But
me.
it's like, isn't Firefly like one season?
I believe it's two, and I think they were going to do more, but it was canceled or something. I think.
Yeah, because I heard that it was one, but maybe I'm mistaken.
I mean, it's definitely. If I'm not mistaken, one of those like, hey, this is one of the. Oh no, you're right. It is one season. I am wrong. It's definitely one of those highly recommended sci-fi series, right? Like, this and Star Trek. And I have watched a decent amount of Star Trek, mostly because I
Mhm.
grew up with that series to a degree. Yes, I'm old. Not the original Star Trek, mind you. I'm
Uh,
not that old, ladies and gentlemen.
okay, I was about to say like which Star Trek because there was the old one and the next generation.
I
Mm.
believe I grew up with New Generation. I think that was my time frame.
Mhm.
And
Like
then
I
Deep
honestly
Space
like
Nine
again
as well.
Star Trek is also one of those franchises that I just kind of missed. Like I've seen one of the newer movies in theaters because friends were like, "Hey, we're going to see Star Trek Beyond," and I'm like, "Hey, sure, you want me to join? I'll join, whatever." And then my girlfriend got me into Lower Decks, which is a really good show, and I'm waiting for season 3 to finish so that I could binge the whole thing with her. So that's my Star Trek
Yeah,
experience, I guess.
Star Trek. The Star Trek I've seen would be I saw Enterprise, I've seen Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and some of the Next Generation. The Next Generation was like just slightly before my time. Again, I'm old. I'm not that old. And
Yeah.
then the animated series
Actually,
and the original series, I've
speaking
just never seen. I've been meaning to, but
speaking
just
of
haven't.
backlogs,
And then some of the
like
newer stuff
one
I've
of
not
my
seen.
weirdest freaking backlogs, and it annoys me that I never get around to it. But like another thing that can kind of goes by because it it's been a while. I think it's even been a decade by this point that there was a Scooby Doo show called Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Oh, that
It was
one.
based.
That's the new one where like they tried to go really dark with it, right?
Yeah, it's like it was like a reboot and stuff, and I really liked the first season, right? Because I'm a
I
Scooby Doo fan.
I've seen
I
all of that.
really enjoy.
I loved it.
So that's the thing. So that's the thing that I really loved season one, and I loved what I've seen of season two. But then they just went on this longest
Yep.
hiatus in the middle of season two, and I just at some point I stopped checking whenever they're back for new episodes, and I never saw the ending to the show. I know it ended with season two, but I never got around to that other half a season. And it pisses me off to this day that I never actually gave it a watch.
Yeah, that was one that I finished. But that brings up an interesting thing, right?
Mhm.
How do you keep up with your backlog actually? Is there a way you keep up with it?
Uh,
You just keep it all in your head? Do you write it down? Because I know I never
Honestly,
knew anyone that did
I'm
this.
just.
I recently met someone who,
Mhm.
they were talking with me about how, hey, if I get recommended a show or a movie or a book or anything, they have a list and they write everything down on that list and they keep an actual list of everything they've watched and or not everything they've watched, but everything that's on their backlog. And then if they
Yeah.
watch it, they cross it out or delete it, whatever. I've never met
Mhm.
anyone that's done that before. And I'm
I
kind of
try
like,
because I'll tell you what.
that's not a bad
uh,
idea.
it's not a bad idea, and I tried it. But the thing is that because one of the ways I manage to keep track of backlog is that if I watch something with someone, so like we
Hmm.
one of my best friends, like it's Jaya, who's been on some podcasts with us.
Hmm.
We watch stuff ever since the pandemic. We just started watching stuff together.
That's another way I
So
think a lot of us got through our backlogs too. The pandemic.
yeah, just watch it with a person, watch it with a friend. So like, and I also started doing this with my girlfriend recently.
Hmm.
Recently since we started dating every year ago, but it's basically that each weekend, each one of us picks a movie
Mm-hmm.
for a movie date. So like one weekend it's me, one weekend it's her, so on and so forth. And that's actually another good way to kind of run backlog because there's some things I've seen and she didn't, and but she's interested, and there's some things that she saw but I didn't, and I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of time it. And in both cases, we tried keeping a list going, but sometimes it's not. But it's like it fails pretty quickly. Like sometimes it works for just a bit, but then, because as you talk, and these are two people that I talk to every day, so sometimes things just pop up, sometimes, and you just want to do this before that, and then you want to do this and not that. So it can help to have a list, but it's also just keep it in your head. It's the best way to go
I
about
mean, you
things.
say that, but then I started watching a show. It went on hiatus for a long time. What was the name of
Yeah.
that show again? God, I can't
Mm.
remember it anymore.
Well,
And then you finally find
I
out
I just
that show,
discovered I
and then it comes back up, and you finally figure out the name, and it's like, oh, I watched that show. I watched like the first 2 seasons of that show. Someone tells you, dude, it ended over 10 years ago at its 5th season, and you're like, what? When? 10 years ago? No, you're lying to
yeah.
me.
No, actually, something. One of the funniest things for me personally is that I remember it wasn't that, but like I dropped out of Two and a Half Men at like season seven,
Yeah,
7 or 8, something
somewhere
like
in
that.
there. I think that show had,
Yeah,
what, 20 seasons? I don't fucking know.
12. It had
12.
12.
It felt like more.
Yeah. But in the middle of all that, there was like the Charlie Sheen controversy. So I had to see that one episode where they brought in Ashton Kutcher because to replace Charlie Sheen, and then so I see that one episode, maybe 2 or 3 afterwards with like a Charlie with like a Ashton Kutcher in the cast, and then they're like. And I just remember it, because again, I just remember this was season 9, right? That season 9 was the season Ashton Kutcher came in.
Mhm.
And suddenly they're like, Two and a Half Men is ending in season 12. And I'm like, how did we get to 12? Well, it's 3 years ago.
Fair. Very fair.
And then I just saw the series finale, and it was one of the shittiest endings to anything.
Actually, you want the perfect example of that for me? Um,
Yeah.
I started watching One Piece when it first started airing because I'm old enough. When it first started airing, I was I was there for the four dubs kid for the 4 kids dub,
For
man.
kids.
I was there
Yo,
for
yeah,
that
yo,
shit.
yeah, yo.
Stop. Stop. You're not allowed. You are off the podcast.
I created the podcast, but yeah, okay.
But
Fair.
I was there for that. And dumb kid me enjoyed that shit. I loved it. And then we got, the better, I believe it was the Toonami and Adult Swim dub back in the
Well, I
day.
know, I know, I know the company is Fun Animation. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
Funimation.
though.
I believe Funimation back then started releasing it on Toonami and Adult Swim, right? Again, and I started
Yeah,
watching it again because I had forgotten about it. And I got older, you grow up, you get out of stuff, and I think when they started doing it, I ended somewhere around like episode in the 100 something, maybe somewhere in there. It was pretty far
yeah.
along. I believe it was past, like, for those who are familiar with One Piece, like the Arlong arc, and they were getting into like it was Sanji was on the crew at that point in time as well, stuff like that, right? It was pretty far along that I had watched, but I had just stopped.
Yeah.
And I believe it was, I want to say, maybe 5-6 years ago, because again, that's how I had not watched One Piece until that point in time. I knew it was a thing still, but it had just slipped my mind. And something brought it back to my attention. I was like, man, it's been a long time since I watched One Piece. I'm curious how that's doing and if it ever finished or not. I go back to it and start watching it again and realize as I'm watching it, oh my God, I'm like, I believe they were at 600 or 700 episodes at that point. And I watched all of it. And lo and behold, no, they're not done. Still, even now.
Like, they're reaching episode 1000, if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
they are past episode 1000. They're on episode
Oh
1000.
my God.
And I believe today, if they release it, it'll be episode 1036.
My God. That's all I have to say.
But yeah, that was one of those shows, right, where it wasn't necessarily my backlog, but it was one of those shows where I started watching it, completely forgot about it, came back, and they're at close to 800 episodes now. Oh my God. When, how, where, why? And they're still not done. And I'm still watching this damn show. It's not on my backlog, but I thought I would bring it up. But
yeah, but it was something that was, and you managed to catch up on. Because let's say I would say One Piece is in my backlog, but I have to start from episode 1, and no way in hell I'm doing that.
Yeah. And here's the great thing about One Piece. Majority of it is not filler, so you would pretty much have to watch just about all of it. The only thing I think most fans would agree you could skip is fucking Foxy.
Oh, thank you. I am going to avoid that.
That's actually a question. Is there anything on your backlog that you know is pretty decent and everybody talks about, but it's just so much that you're like, no, thank you.
A lot of a lot of people were talking about Naruto.
You broke up a little bit. Repeat that.
Naruto.
Naruto. Yeah.
And for the record, my best friend showed me some episodes because she is a big fan of Jiraiya and Shirama, or Hashi as we call them, and so I've seen a few episodes with them in it, and it's a good show. I enjoyed what I've seen, but I'm not going to watch 700 of it. Have you heard of Burnout? It's gonna hit.
I mean, personally, when people are kind of like at that stage, I'll just recommend Shippuden, because instead of being like 800 episodes, it's 300, 300 to 400.
Not helping.
It's better.
Yeah, it cuts the majority, but then also I know that I skipped half the shit. I skipped half this thing, and that.
I mean,
and you can
argue
say that
you don't need to watch
meeting.
what came before in order to watch Shippuden, right? That's what I tell people. Like, you can jump into Shippuden and still get everything more or less. But yeah, there is like some stuff there that was introduced and that you would be familiar with from watching the old stuff that you're just not going to have, right? And that's a problem for me. I'll actually say something that's a bit more recent. All of the Marvel stuff. There's so much of the Marvel stuff that I've missed that it's on my backlog, honestly, but it's so much and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's just
honestly, in the shows, I have a lot of Marvel shows that are in my backlog.
It's movies and shows for me. It's just so much that I've missed that I would need
honestly
to watch.
Yeah, I have some movies and that I need to catch up. Like, I haven't seen the Black Widow movie. But I've seen I've seen Shang-Chi, obviously No Way Home I've seen because big Spider-Man guy, and also we did a podcast about it. I watched Doctor Strange. I watched Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I've seen Thor: Love and Thunder. I think that's the latest one so far.
You want to know my list? The most recent Marvel things I've seen is No Way Home, the Winter Soldier, and
That's before No Way Home.
Yeah, I know, but I've seen those two, and I've seen the Loki TV show.
Yeah,
those are the only three recent Marvel things I have seen.
All shows that we covered here on the podcast, for the record.
Yes, and we might cover more. I've not watched any of it though. I just, again,
Like,
Marvel has grown
what if,
so much and there's so much
like,
to it. It's just,
what if I've seen an episode and I gave up because I didn't like the one episode? And again, Miss Marvel, I enjoyed the two episodes that I've seen. I just didn't get around to it. So I to the rest of it. So slowly but surely.
yeah, I've just not watched any of it. At this point, it's one of those things where I kind of just pick and choose, like, oh, this looks interesting, and I'll watch that. But then I realize, fuck, they're referencing shit that I've not seen, and I don't get it. And I get told, like, oh, did you get this reference? I'm like, no. Like, oh, did you not watch? No. Oh, you should go watch. Yeah, I guess. Let me go watch the 50 billion films that came before so I can understand all the different references. There's not that many. I'm over exaggerating, but still, it feels like
Yeah,
I
I
get how
get you.
people feel when people say, watch One Piece. How many episodes are there? 1030. I'm not doing that. That's
Yeah.
too many. But you should. I get it. I get it. All right. I've had the taste of my own medicine. I get it. I don't like it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like when people tell me to catch up on Pokemon again. I'm doing that. I'm not
I,
doing that. I'm not doing another.
the only thing I say,
I've,
like, yeah, there's a lot of Pokemon seasons that would technically be on my backlog too. But the only one I'm interested in watching is, I believe it's X and Y, because it gets, I think like that's when they took things way more seriously, and the show and the season and the storytelling got a
I'm
little
not
bit darker.
sure. I'm not sure if I think not too long ago my girlfriend showed me an episode from the X and Y seasons. I think it was those seasons. I may be wrong, but that these episodes she described them as when Pokemon tried to do SpongeBob,
No, that's Sun and
and
Moon. That's the more recent stuff, I believe. X and Y was
okay,
darker.
mhm.
X and Y,
But
I
like
think, tapped
so
into more of its anime roots, and they kind of like slightly
okay.
darker storytelling, slightly darker themes. You know, they tried to be a bit more
Actually,
serious with stuff.
speaking of shows, speaking of backlog, SpongeBob. I need to. SpongeBob is in my backlog because apparently it's good
Fuck,
again.
it's good again. I can't go back. It's too much. It's been too long. God, how many seasons is SpongeBob at now?
I think it's at either 12 or 13.
Why does it feel like it should be more?
I'll tell you what, because the show itself is like past 20 years by this point, but because there was a bit of a break between season 3 and 4 because they were doing the movie, and for a while it appeared that the show got canceled and then it came back, so it feels like it should be more.
It really does, but yeah, you're right. The 13th season is due out this October, apparently.
Yeah, even
I
though
think
Nickelodeon is doing this thing with SpongeBob, and then there are also two SpongeBob spin-offs now. There's like the Camp Call spin-off where there are kids in summer camp, and there's the Patrick Star show. I'm not saying I'm going to watch those, but I'm just saying if you want to the complete SpongeBob experience, you have two more shows to get to back up.
I refuse. I refuse. I refuse. I think I stopped watching around maybe season 5, season 6. Like that's just when it kind of
That's
slipped
around
out.
that's around the same that's around the same time I slipped up. And like I've seen an episode here and there, which
Same.
was enough to land on an episode where Patrick basically admits that he's being stupid on purpose, and that was my breaking point.
um, trying to think. Is there, as far as like other stuff, like hmm. Any, we've mostly been talking about movies and shows. Any books or games
Yeah.
on your backlog?
Well, books I have a lot because I'm not much of a reader,
That's
so
fair.
it takes a bit to, like even comic books. These are things that like it takes a bit longer for me to actually sit down and read. Games, just let's see how many games I have on my PSN account that I didn't play but I bought because damn what. Yeah, there's a
I know
lot.
that feeling. There's a lot. I know that feeling. For me,
Actually. something funny actually that for my birthday earlier this year, a friend of mine got me The Witcher 3 because it was dirt cheap, and that was always one that was kind of on my backlog. But then after, like a day after he got it for me, I didn't even manage to put the damn disc inside the console. And they suddenly announced that there was going to be like a PS5 remaster patch coming out. So I'm like, well, I'll just wait on that then. And
And you have
still
not.
waiting.
Oh,
And he also got me Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I'm like, yeah, I'll play an Assassin's Creed game. I said it also when I got the Ezio collection. I'm like, but it's like, okay, they're fun. Then something else came out, and I just focused on that and forgot about Assassin's Creed. Like, it happens way too often that I'm either about to start something or I start something, but then something else comes along. Speaking of which, fuck you, Nine Realms. I was about to try an indie game I was really looking forward to. And then you came along, and I need to do a podcast about you.
you didn't. You didn't.
Tease.
We don't have to. You didn't have to.
We have to, because we have a podcast called the freaking Berkcast, which is the How to Train a Dragon podcast. And I'll be damned if we don't do this, because apparently this fucking game has lore, but that's for another time.
It
Talk about
does. It does, and it saddens me. And it's
We'll
a
talk
game.
about this another time. We'll talk about this another time.
Any
But
game
yeah,
that is there any game like on your backlog that like I really want to play that I just haven't, like any game that either you don't own it yet or
yeah,
you do own it and
I
just
just
haven't.
I just got something. I don't remember the name, and I don't want to turn the pain, and I don't want to so on because it will. But it was like what? It's kind of an indie game that's like a combination of 2D and 3D, and it had a cool outside. I don't remember the name of it, but I just remember seeing a trailer. It came out around the same time as my birthday, so I kind of treated myself for it, and I didn't get a chance to play it. And some other stuff just kind of come around, and sometimes my backlog is even consistent of games that I want to replay or 100%,
Mhm.
and that gets stuck. Like I tried to do a 100% playthrough of Batman Arkham City, but then again other stuff showed up in the way, and I kind of forgot about that. Ah,
Fair.
I even wanted I even started a new file on the 2018 God of War to kind of refresh my memory in time for God of War Ragnarok, and I just stopped because other things showed up in the way. Not necessarily things that I want to play or watch, but sometimes just life gets in the way.
Yeah, no, this is
I
true. This is why we have backlogs. I for me, something that I've it's been on my backlog since it came out after I tried the demo because I really enjoyed it. Haven. It's I don't
Haven. Wait, what are we talking about? What
It's a
console?
video game. I know
Yeah,
it's
I
out
know it's
on
a video.
Steam. I don't know where else it has released on. Let me see if I can figure that out real quick.
What's the full name of it?
Haven.
Oh, it's just Haven.
It's just Haven.
Okay, because I think because there was another
Yes,
game.
it's released on PS4, Switch, the X and S for Xbox, the Xbox One, PlayStation 5, and then, Steam.
Let me just check what it is because it's probably not the Haven that I think.
It's kind of like it's a bit of a visual novel. It's also like they have it's been so long since I played the demo. Like you can float around and navigate around the world, and you kind of follow like these threads, and there's like this combat element to it that's like timing based and like
It looks very anime-like.
yes, it's very anime too, to
Okay,
a degree.
so because
Like the
the
big
thing
thing
is,
from it was like you play these two characters who are supposed to be in a relationship together, and like you
Mhm.
learn more of their story as you play through the game. But the big thing about it was like, oh, you have to coordinate. It's meant to be a two-player game, and you have to coordinate with the other
Yeah,
player, right?
that's another thing. Like one of my thing is last year. There was a game which came out called It Takes Two. A lot of
Mm,
people praised that. I would love to play it, but sadly, I'm in a long distance relationship. So if someone can pay my girlfriend to come here, I would gladly
yeah.
try it out.
Unlike
But
It Takes Two, Haven can be played solo,
yeah,
and I tried it out based on the demo and from a friend who had told me about it, and I really enjoyed like from what I the experience I did get. I really enjoyed the writing of the game because I thought it was exceptionally well done and how it was portraying a relationship and what it
yeah,
was doing there, and I really liked that. And I'm like, yeah, this is definitely going on the list, and it's just, but it hadn't released at that point. But I was able to play the demo, and it's still on the list.
yeah, I understand.
Another
The
one.
reason I was shocked because there was another like PS2 game called Haven,
Yeah, this is
which
not
ended
that.
on which ended on a cliffhanger. So I was about to tell you, if it's this one, don't bother.
Another one that's on my list that I have not gotten to yet, but I don't know if I ever will because I know so much about it now because so much of it's been spoiled. Going back to that kind of
Yeah.
chestnut is Near Automata.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
know,
that's one I actually played and I really enjoyed.
yeah, it's a
I
great game
actually kind
series,
of
but I know so much about it now and how it does a lot of its story stuff
I
and beats that.
honestly like that's the thing. I know that it's apparently a series, but I only played Automata, or whatever it's pronounced. And
Hmm.
like apparently everything else is kind of like a remaster or a remake. Am I getting
Hmm.
this right, or is there an actual sequel?
No, there's not been a sequel yet, not to Automata, as far as I'm aware. But there have been. I know Near, I believe it's called Near Replicant, is like a remake of the original Near,
Okay.
and like the Near series is an interconnected web because you also have connected to the Near series the Drakengard series, and that's even older, and that I do have
Uh,
experience with and did play. The those were fun games. They're not great games, but those were fun games.
yeah, but Near Automata, I did play that.
Yes.
And but yeah, there are so many things in the like actually one game that I just kind of picked up. I know that the Yakuza series is very famous, but
Oh
like it's
God,
mostly out.
Yakuza.
That's the thing. They're RPGs, so I'm not really into RPGs as much. But one day I walk into a store and I see Judgment, and I read the Judgment is related to Yakuza, but it's an action RPG, meaning that's more my style. There's no
All of
turn-based
the
fighting.
actually, believe it or not, all of the Yakuza series is more action RPG. I think
Okay,
the
then. So
newest
I
one is more RPG than action RPG.
So put all of them in my backlog, I guess. But like, so I started
Welp.
Judgment, and like, I kind of and I like what I'm playing. I like the story. I like the character, but it was just the same thing, and it just kind of went into my backlog because I just couldn't get. It was just like, okay, when are things getting interesting? When are things happening? And And yeah, Sunday a lot of times it's just that a game starts well, but it's just it goes on for so long that at some point you're just giving up.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Yakuza series in general is like that a lot. It's a very slow burn. I feel there. It's meant
Yeah.
to like, hey, you're meant to feel like you're kind of living in this world, very much like the Oh, what is that
Shenmue.
game? It's just yes, Shinmu. I believe that's it. Yeah, because I think
Ironically, both are owned by Sega.
yes.
So
Well, I mean, I think the
actually, no,
Yakuza series is kind of like the spiritual successor to Shinmu.
yeah, because actually, now that I think about it, Shenmue, like it started on Sega, but the IP is no longer at Sega. It's actually with Yu Suzuki. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the second one came out, and I've not heard good things. There's also a
You
Shenmue
know,
anime, and I have no clue what that's like, but it's
there
also
was an
technically on my
anime.
backlog. Yes, there was an anime.
I thought Shenmue 3 existing and people hating it was weird. So, but
Nope.
an anime, okay.
Yep, there was a TV series released this year, actually, back in
Oh,
February.
okay.
Released from February to May. I have no idea if it's good or not.
Well, I hope that the fans like it.
It's on my backlog, but again, I have no clue if it's good or not. I just have
Okay.
not got to it.
So basically, here we are. I think we kind of talked about this long enough, unless you
Well,
have anything to add.
I think we should end it with you know pick one thing on your backlog that you can think of, show, book, movie, game, whatever, that you're definitely gonna sit down and watch soon. Like hey, I'm gonna get this off my backlog, right? Is there
Uh,
anything that like this is something I'm really interested in? I really need to play or watch it or read it, and I'm gonna get it off my backlog. How about we end it with that?
um, let's see. I need to think, but maybe some of my gaming backlog, maybe all the indie games I bought on sale, or some of the bigger releases that I actually need to put more time into, because those are like the big time investment.
Mm-hmm.
So those are. So I hope to get those out of the way as soon as possible. I'm not sure if it will be this year because the games backlog is huge, and we are nearing the end of September at the time of
Well,
this recording, and
how
I
about we
already
do this,
know
right?
that.
Like you pick one, and you we cover it in the Outcast Awards, our award show that we do every year.
And you know that in November
Plug, plug,
I have
plug.
both Sonic Frontiers and God of War Ragnarok. So and both of them have a
Oh
good
God.
chance of showing up.
So you're gonna disappear, and we're never gonna hear from you
No, you don't worry about that. But yeah, all I'm going to say is that I love God of War, but Sonic takes priority.
Well,
Anyway,
for
uh,
me, I will pick one show that I'm absolutely gonna have off my backlog, and I will
yes,
even cover it in the Outcast Awards. Plug, plug, plug. I'll pick Konosuba, a anime that has been
Konosuba.
out for a while. It's a comedy anime. I definitely have been. It's been on my backlog, and I want to watch it.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's a Konosuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world.
Sounds interesting. I'm
It
kind
is
of hooked.
a comedy series. I've heard very good things. It's been on my backlog for a long time, and it's time I get it off. So that's my commitment to getting at least one thing off my backlog. That list stretches on for miles, I'm sure, and it doesn't grow
I
shorter ever,
guess
no
you
matter
know
how many I get
something.
off of it.
And I will say, if I can manage to get all of the comic books slash graphic novels that I have either received or bought, and like just for me, I can see that like one, two, three, four, five of those. If I can, and that's the ones I can see directly. If I can get those off of my backlog, that will be great.
Listen, I just need to someone give me the power of immortality so I can just experience all of the things, right? So I can just live forever, you know.
Yeah.
Um, you know, make some
I'm going to
sacrifices on my behalf
I'm
for me,
going.
please.
I am going to encourage you with very uplifting. That comes to
I
us
mean, as
all.
of right now, my plan is to just I don't think that I'm old. I think that I'm young, and therefore I look young, and therefore I am young, and I'll just live forever. That's my plan.
We've been doing this podcast for like 6 years, and I still have no idea what you look like. So yeah, you look young. Let's
I
go.
am a dog. I go by the name of Wolf. I look like a wolf. I am a wolf. Who knows? I type and I speak. It's weird. No one's figured it out yet, though.
You know something? For a second, I was sure you were going to say, "Oh."
I'm not that committed.
Anyway,
But
that was all for.
well,
Yeah,
one last
go
thing. I
ahead.
think it does. Speaking of backlogs to end off, right? I have a question for you. I think personally that it is a good thing that we have these backlogs, right? I know some people would say,
Yeah.
"Oh God, I hate my backlog," but I think it is a good thing that we are spoiled for choice because if fewer things released and we had, you know, less to watch, less to read or play, right? I think that would be a bad thing overall because there'd be less to experience and just less stuff out there.
I agree that it's good that you have a backlog because that means you have things to look forward to. You
Mhm.
have things to expect. You have things to, you have things to that oh, this is coming and this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be great and all that stuff. Like you have stuff to look forward to, which is very
Mhm.
nice. At the same time, it would also be nice if backlogs wouldn't last in a lifetime, and if it was easier to actually get around to those things.
Well, I do think, right, that it's also great that we have all these choices, right? You know,
That's true.
because if we didn't have these choices, I feel things would be less interesting, less fun, and less enjoyable overall because there would be so few things to choose from. The fact that
Yeah.
there's 50 billion different isekai animes that you can watch, and that list does not grow shorter, it continues to grow even longer. By the end of this year, there will
Mhm.
probably be 60 billion different isekais you can watch and read. But, and absolutely, I have watched many of them. The majority of them are not good. They are absolutely terrible. But there's a
So,
couple in there that are genuinely really good, or, diamonds in the rough, blah, blah, blah. And I'm glad that I've experienced those, even if I had to experience a couple of bad ones to get to those really good ones, because it was nice to have all those different choices and it was nice to see those different things and enjoy that and have fun with it. And even the bad ones I was able to have fun with.
if
And
you say
God, they
so.
are bad. God, they are bad. But sometimes. Anyways, yeah, I do believe that, at the end of it all, I think most of us would say, ugh, backlogs. But yeah, it's nice that we have it. It's nice to every now and again have the time to sit down and watch something and get it off the backlog. Even if the
Mhm.
time for discussion of it has passed, it's enjoyable. And yeah, there's quite a few times where I'm gonna get this off my backlog. No, I'm not. This new thing came out, like Horus Recoil. Let's talk about that, and shit.
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
And
Well, but
again, yeah, backlog's not terrible. Hate that I have it. Hate that I'll probably never be able to fully finish it, unfortunately. But you're not too bad.
yeah. So, with this somewhat uplifting view on the matter, that has been all for this episode of the podcast of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts about your backlog? Are you gonna get rid of it soon? Are you never going to get rid of it? Anything you want to take down from it, you can tell us about it in the comments section below on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Teams. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.